The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not imagine that I have come to abolish the law of the prophets. I have come not to abolish them, but to complete them. I tell you solemnly, till heaven and earth disappear, not one dot, one little stroke shall disappear from the law until its purpose is achieved. Therefore the man who infringes even one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be considered the least in the kingdom of heaven. But the man who keeps them and teaches them will be considered great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, if your virtue goes no deeper than that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never get into the kingdom of heaven. You have learned how it was said to our ancestors, 'You must not kill, and if anyone does kill, he must answer for it before the court.' But I say this to you, anyone who is angry with his brother will answer for it before the court. If a man calls his brother fool, he will answer for it before the Sanhedrin. And if a man calls him renegade, he will answer for it in hellfire. So then, if you are bringing your offering before the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar. Go and be reconciled with your brother first, and then come back and present your offering. Come to terms with your opponent in good time, while you are still on the way to the court with him, or he may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and you will be thrown into prison. I tell you solemnly, you will not get out till you have paid the last penny. You have learned how it was said, 'You must not commit adultery.' But I say this to you, if a man looks at a woman lustfully, he has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye should cause you to sin, tear it out and throw it away, for it will do you less harm to lose one part of you than to have your whole body thrown into hell. And if your right hand should cause you to sin, cut it off and throw it away, for it will do you less harm to lose one part of you than to have your whole body go to hell. It has also been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a writ of dismissal. But I say this to you, everyone who divorces his wife, except for the case of fornication, makes her an adulteress, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have learned how it was said to our ancestors, 'You must not break your oath, but must fulfill your oaths to the Lord.' But I say this to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, since that is by God's throne, or by the earth, since that is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, since that is the city of the great King. Do not swear by your own head either, since you cannot turn a single hair white or black. All you need say is yes if you mean yes, no if you mean no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one." The Gospel of the Lord. There's a lot there. As we know, it's a long reading for the gospel today. One of the things that we can see that Jesus is doing, he's showing how the things of the old covenant, have to be lived in a far deeper way, and there will be new things given with him than what they were previously used to. You have heard from your ancestors it was like this, don't do this and do that, but I say this to you, there is a new thing, a deeper thing I'm calling you into, a more faithful living of the commandments and the instructions. And there, yes, as Christians, we must listen attentively. It's much more, as we well know. We all know what I'm about to say well. Our Christian life must be lived from the interior to the outside. Interiority manifested and properly manifested in a exteriority. And then, of course, by living it in its exterior sense, it helps reinforce our interior living of our faith. We can't just live things at an external level and think that we're okay. Jesus is warning them, if your virtue goes no deeper than the scribes and the Pharisees, who just did things on the outside, they had the appearance of virtue, the appearance of sanctity, things will go wrong and you won't get into the kingdom of heaven. Today, we sometimes have the opposite problem, don't we? People say, well, I believe, but I don't think I need to go to church. I've got my faith, I've got my personal beliefs. I'll do my thing. I have my interiority, but we don't see anything manifested exteriorly for their faith. And there, my brothers and sisters, yes, we do need both. The interior adhesion to Christ in our faith as a spiritual reality that we live of, as an intellectual adhesion to the contents of our faith, given to us by the church, alive in charity, a love of God and love of our neighbor. And then, yes, coming to church, involved in the community, worshipping in the liturgy, receiving the body and blood of the Lord, going to confession, living our Catholic life, sharing that with others, looking out for acts of charity that we can do for our neighbor. All of those are the exteriority of our faith, which manifest a reality that's internal. Both are needed for a real Catholic life. And there Jesus is the one who makes the interiority possible, truly possible. Many of the Jews had sincere hearts and they sincerely prayed, but they did not have access to the grace of redemption. When Christ calls us into a far deeper thing, calls us into real conversion, real transformation, he also gives us the means by which to live it. Because on our own strength, it's actually impossible. Yes, we have a natural goodness given to us by God. It's only been wounded by original sin. It has not been entirely corrupted. Yes, we're capable of good acts, natural love, looking for the truth a little bit. But to go all the way in a whole life, faithful in love, loving the goodness we encounter around us, faithful to the natural moral law that we can discover even through a good philosophy, impossible without the grace of God because of the brokenness in us. We have desperately needed this divine assistance, this supernatural means by which we live what Jesus asks. The Lord doesn't ask anything of us that he does not make possible for us with the work that he achieves on the cross. And that's the good news. If there are hard things in these passages of the gospel today, the good news is that the Lord is there for us to help us live it. Too much there to comment on it all. Let's just look at one or two elements. The Lord is very clear about the issues around adultery. It's not just the non-living of a sexual lifestyle outside of marriage, all of which is sinful in one way or another and remains sinful. And the Lord warns us, and that warning is still needed today. We know the right order of things. We want to present the mercy of God to attract people to convert, because it gives us hope, all of us, but especially those that are lost in the fleshy business of the world today, all the licentiousness, all of the free lifestyles that are promoted. The way to attract people in to discover the love and the mercy of Christ certainly is to present God's mercy in an attractive way. It's the first way that we should try to evangelize. But yes, there are times to tell people and to warn them of the danger of the path that they are on. And that includes those that might be a little bit outside the church, but it also includes Catholics who are living wayward lives. And sometimes, just like Christ, we need to use the threat of punishment to wake people up. It's so fascinating to me today how we all accept, most of us, not all, the hard left politically in our climate and in our society today, even want to get rid of punishment at the civil level. They think that all prisons are wrong. We can fix everybody by sitting them down and giving them a special class of re-education. Just give them a few social lessons. Put them among some brothers and sisters. That'll fix them. Some, yes. But we forget, my brothers and sisters, there are people with bad will in our society that even with the best education, even with the best love and the most merciful friendships, will still want to stay in the darkness and do wrong, and do serious wrong to others. That is why there's always a need for corrective, retributive justice in any normal society. Prisons remain a needed reality to protect the community and also to help correct. And I agree, the prisons don't do a good job of correction at all, even though they call themselves the corrections department. But so fascinating. The contrast I'm making is how most of us see the need of a correctional system in any healthy society. But when it comes to religion, there seems to be such a aversion, such a nervousness in our common climate today to speak about divine punishment as a correction to get people moving onto the right path. We all feel it a little bit because we know that there's such a reaction when you begin to speak of hell and the fact that people suffer in hell. There's such a violent reaction among many today. But even if that be the case, it's still from time to time needed, no doubt. I've read conversion stories of men and women who've come back to the church where being warned of hell has been the very mechanism to get them moving out of the bad life that they're living. It's important from time to time. I remember talking to a very good priest who had been asked to come in to talk to some youth who were into bad stuff. They were on their road to a gang lifestyle. And at the beginning, the priest was trying to use all the normal mechanisms of attraction to get them to think more deeply about their lives. And when he realized that they weren't interested, he then resorted to saying, look, watch out, because if you start on this life and stay in this life, you will end up in hell. And God is real, and hell is real, so watch out. You don't want to live this lifestyle. There are times for that to be the case. And there the Lord is warning us in this gospel today, clearly in his teaching, that we have to be radical against the temptations in our wounded nature and especially against the temptations of our time, to resist very strongly against all the lust that's promoted everywhere. It requires radical pushing back in our own life to say no to it, to make a separation from it. TV, it's everywhere. Internet, it's everywhere. Social media, it's everywhere. On all the magazines, and then in summer, we see all the fashions. So hard to keep a pure heart and a pure body for the Lord today. And there he's saying we must be wanting at least to have an interiority that's pure as well as an exteriority that's pure. He goes further than just the external living. A man or a woman who looks at one of the opposite sex to whom they are attracted to and wants to grasp at them for their own pleasure, that is the very definition of lust. St. Thomas Aquinas, the description on lust that he uses in his theological writings is a parallel with the animal kingdom. When the lion sees the wildebeest or the antelope in the prairie in Africa, it has no reflection to go deeper than simply an instinctive reaction to want to possess the other one for the consumption of a meal to satisfy a material need in their body. There's no reflection to look at the animal and think, look at the beauty of this beast, look at its form, look at the dignity it has, look at it as a creature of God. There's nothing like that goes on in the tiny little brain of the lion. It has an instinctive reaction and chases with all of its energy to capture, kill, and eat. And that's the parallel that he makes with lust. When a man or a woman is at that level, and when they are operating like that, they are wanting to possess the other one for themselves, for the pleasure that it gives them. And it can be in a physical encounter, but it can be in an interior way when one sees another, and it can be conjured up in the imagination, fantasies of all sorts of kinds. And there the Lord is saying, if one or the other or both, either way, we are guilty of adultery if we enter into that. And we must be radical to try to fight against it because of our broken nature, and especially today in our time, in the culture in which we live. To be radical means not literally here. We know what Jesus is meaning. He's using hyperbole, deliberate extreme examples to make his point. Pluck out the right eye, cut off the hand. He's saying we must be radical in order to fight against these kinds of sins. Today, what might that radicality look like? It might mean getting rid of a smartphone. It might mean only using the computer when one is in public. It might mean going to a dumb phone for a whole year, fasting from the internet, and only using it when absolutely necessary. It might mean joining up to some of the help groups that are going on today to help people with addiction to pornography or other issues besides. It might mean even breaking from a group of friends that constantly leads a person into sin by the lifestyles that they live and the bars and the nightclubs and the other things that they frequent. There, we're often in a choice. Do I choose Christ and the life he wants for me? Or do I compromise in between? Or do I go the other way? And in the process, I very much risk losing Christ, and I put my body and my soul in danger of hell. There, my brothers and sisters, there is in this gospel today a call for radical conversion and to be radical in the choices we make so that Christ can have the whole place in our soul and in our heart, in our mind. Yes, it is hard. It is a hard work that must be undertaken every day. Christian life is a combat, no doubt, against the world, the flesh, and the devil. And there, the person who undertakes this fight every day, because of the grace that God affords them, can win through to be in a stable way, secure in a certain purity of heart and a purity of body. Does it mean that we'll never be attracted? Of course not. There's always in our body the sensitive attraction, what we call the passionate love. Eros is what the Greeks called it. Yes, there will always be the involuntary attraction from time to time, someone who's very attractive to us for whatever reason. But it's what we do with that attraction that determines the morality of our situation. Do I consent to it and get myself into trouble, begin imagining or flirting in a way that I shouldn't, especially if I'm already engaged? Or beginning to use the person for my own ends in a lustful way? Those are the interior choices we are presented with. Or do I want to remain attentive to the person in their dignity as a person created by God, redeemed by Christ, and try to go beyond the sensitive attraction and love them as a person, wanting to attain in my intelligence to the deepest level of who they are and love them in my will? That's what is going on at a spiritual level in us. And there's often a tug of war. My intelligence attracted to know the person in truth, my will attracted to love their goodness spiritually in a healthy way, and then my sensitive attraction that often is pulling back towards me. A tug of war in two directions. And the reason that tug of war is there is because we've lost certain gifts that we had in the Garden of Eden that made that entirely harmonious, properly integrated, that all my lower drives, my lower passions in the Garden of Eden were so easily assumed upwards and put at the service of my spiritual love for the one that I would face. For Adam and Eve, so easy to love one another in a healthy, whole, integrated way, not turning to use the other one for oneself. Today, we must ask the Lord's assistance. Two things, and I'll finish. We must ask the Lord's assistance to help us develop the virtue of temperance, which tempers the lower passions and drives, like we temper steel, chastens them, like we would chasten particular materials to be in the right direction, and that's where we get the word chastity from, to purify them, and that's where we get the word purity from. We must, by small successive actions every day, choosing not to go down the lustful path, by building up in our will a strength, properly reordering our passions at the service of a true love, a spiritual love, we inculcate, we engraft a habit into our passions which reorders them, and we call that a virtue, the virtue of temperance. It's a hard work that must be undertaken every day in order to become stable in the way that I live my passionate, emotional life at the service of a spiritual love for the other person. And there, my brothers and sisters, often this is never spoken about in the schools or anywhere in our Catholic environment. It's the way out at a natural level for all of us, but especially the young people, to reach a stability in who they are, able to say no to the pornography, no to the other sins connected with that, no to these licentious lifestyles, and say, I'm going to wait till I meet the one that I want to marry and give myself in a true love to them. It is possible today, and it is a fight worth fighting. The one who lets themselves go into sexual sin is the one who ends up very broken, very wounded, often difficulties to be able to love authentic, and carrying a lot of baggage into marriage. The second thing that we're given to help us to develop the purity required, temperance also, is the supernatural grace. Thanks be to God, He comes to our aid and gives us so much for this fight. The question is, will we enter into it? Will we avail ourselves of the grace that assists us to live in this healthy and holy way? It comes through the Blessed Eucharist, frequent reception of Holy Communion, praying the Rosary, devotion and consecration to the Blessed Virgin Mary, reading the Scriptures, frequent confession, all of the divinely given means that God, has given us. If we enter into the fight at a natural level, assisted by grace, and we make use of all those gifts, so much easier is that combat every day, to fight and to fight. Sometimes, though, as I mentioned, there are radical choices needed to break. If anyone has addiction, they have to go 10 times harder in the opposite direction. It's one of the truths of a good anthropology on the human person, but also a truth of the spiritual life. If we want to break a vice, which is a bad habit in a sinful direction, we have to go 5 times, 10 times harder in the other direction to break that habit and to establish the good habit, the virtue, which is built up by successive good choices at the service of the truth that we know to be right, and assisted by God's grace, of course. There, my brothers and sisters, it is a radical life that Christ calls us to, but the good news is He's on our side. He's always giving us all the means necessary. The question is, are we willing to step into it or continue to be in it? And are we willing to be resolute in all the fights and everyday choices that will ask of us? Let us put it before the Lord and ask Him to help us wherever we may be at in that fight and in that combat and in that living of our Christian life. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.